Welcome to This Explainer. I am so glad you're here with me today. Listen, if you're navigating the profound physical and psychological recalibrations of menopause right now, I want you to know right out of the gate, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're taking a really close look at the science behind what our bodies are actually going through. And more importantly, we're uncovering the incredible documented agency we have as women during this exact phase of life. It is so easy to feel like we're just passengers on this incredibly turbulent ride, but the scientific evidence tells a radically different story about our biology. It's a story of adaptation, not decline, and that is exactly what we are going to explore. So, let's start with a very honest question. Does menopause feel like you're just completely losing control? If you're nodding your head right now, I see you. And science absolutely backs up why you feel that way. It's a really frustrating reality that the natural decline in our estrogen levels leaves our autonomic nervous system highly vulnerable, right? Without that previous estrogen baseline acting as a buffer for us, we're just much more susceptible to this overwhelming fight or flight stress response. It's very real, it's entirely physiological, and it can literally feel like our own bodies are suddenly operating against us. And because of that heightened stress vulnerability, there's a specific thought that crosses almost all of our minds at some point. I'm falling apart. It is incredibly common to have this exact thought. If you've whispered it to yourself at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, or maybe during a sudden hot flash right in the middle of a meeting, you are entirely justified. But I want to ask you to just hold on to that thought for a second, because we're about to completely reframe this deeply personal transition, and we're going to do it using the actual mechanics of how our biology works. Okay, let's dive right into this. On one hand, we have the documented fact of our biological vulnerability to that fight or flight stress response. That's just the biology of a shifting hormonal landscape. But on the exact same token, the sources confirm that we have profound, significant biological agency to influence this transition through behavioral design. You are not at the mercy of the shift. Your behaviors, your choices, they can actively, powerfully steer exactly how your body and mind experience it. To truly understand our agency here, we kind of need a paradigm shift in how we view menopause itself. Rather than a decline, a loss, or a falling apart, science shows that your brain and nervous system are actually undergoing what researchers describe as a massive software upgrade. Your biology is actively reorganizing in response to those hormonal shifts. Think of it like your smartphone or your laptop going offline for a minute to install a brand new operating system. It might glitch, you might experience the human equivalent of a buffering screen, and it might even run hot, literally, but it is not breaking, it's upgrading. So let's look at the mechanics of this upgrade really quickly. First, your brain and nervous system are actively reorganizing right now. Second, this entire recalibration is triggered by those well-known hormonal shifts. But here is the absolute most empowering part. You provide the inputs that determine the rewiring. During this time, you aren't just coping with symptoms. Your deliberate choices, behaviors, and attitudes, they act as the literal programming code that determines exactly how your nervous system rewires itself for this next phase of your life. Now, understanding the science of this agency gives us the exact roadmap we need. How exactly do our daily inputs rewrite our biological software? What's the mechanism that takes a simple behavioral choice and turns it into a physical, neurological change during menopause? Well, it all comes down to a specific biological superpower that we all possess. And it's one that becomes incredibly relevant for us right now. That superpower is neuroplasticity. Basically, this is the brain's remarkable ability to restructure itself by establishing new neural connections throughout your entire life. Your brain isn't fixed in stone. It is entirely capable of being recoded. And because menopause is already a period of intense neurological reorganization, your brain's neuroplasticity is highly engaged right now. Your deliberate attitudes and behaviors are literally the hands shaping the clay of those new neural pathways. So how do we actually write this new code for our upgrade? What are the tools we use to guide this neuroplasticity? Well, it starts with the very first pillar of our behavioral design, and that's language. Specifically, the words we use every single day, both out loud to others and quietly to ourselves. Language isn't just how we communicate our feelings, it's the fundamental tool for biological instruction. Now, what's really interesting here is that science makes a profound distinction. Your words are instructive, not just descriptive. When you speak, you aren't just describing your current state of being. You are literally handing an instruction manual to your nervous system. What you say to yourself is read by your biology as a direct command of exactly how it should be operating in that specific moment. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Let's go back to that thought. I'm falling apart. When we constantly tell ourselves this, we are sending a direct physical threat signal to our brain. And the brain responds to that instruction by raising cortisol levels and intensifying our stress response. It actually makes the hot flashes, the anxiety, and the exhaustion so much worse. Conversely, when we consciously reframe the experience, telling ourselves something like, I am growing through this, that language actively regulates the nervous system, instructing it to remain grounded and steady. So once we're mindful of the code we're writing with our words, we can move on to the second pillar of this upgrade, activating rest and digest. We need to consciously flip the biological switch from that feeling of heightened stress to a state of calm. We have to purposefully activate our rest and digest state to give our upgrading nervous system the exact environment it needs to optimize those new neural connections. Remember earlier when we talked about how declining estrogen leaves us vulnerable to the fight or flight stress response? Well, the only way to balance that scale is by intentionally countering it. And we do this by actively engaging our parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, this is the calm side of our biology. Since our shifting hormones aren't keeping the stress side in check the way they used to, we have to use our behavioral agency to manually activate the calm side. So the crucial point is, how do we actually do that? We have to use conscious antidotes to stress, things like deliberate self-compassion and engaging in humor. And listen, these aren't just fluffy, feel-good concepts. Science shows that a genuine laugh can immediately drop cortisol levels and directly switch on your parasympathetic nervous system, instantly countering the fight-or-flight response. So giving yourself grace and laughing at the pure absurdity of a brain fog moment isn't just nice, it's a fast-acting physiological intervention. Okay, so we've got our new language, our reframed instructions, and we have our antidotes in self-compassion and humor to activate our calm side. But an upgrade isn't completely finished until the code is saved and running automatically, right? This brings us to the final pillar, making these changes stick permanently. We have to move from conscious effort to subconscious habit, and we do that by rewiring through repetition. Let's walk through this habit loop together. Step 1, you practice a new behavior consistently. This means intentionally catching that negative self-talk and practicing humor when you feel overwhelmed. Step 2, as you do this, you physically strengthen the neural pathways in your brain associated with those positive actions. And finally, step 3, because those pathways are now robust, these empowering behaviors become automatic habits. They require less and less willpower to maintain over time. The biological engine driving this entire loop is called synaptic plasticity. This is the structural strengthening of those neural pathways through your consistent repetition. Synaptic plasticity is the ultimate scientific proof that the hard work you put into reframing your mindset today literally gets easier on a biological level over time. Your brain is quite literally building the permanent infrastructure to support the new, upgraded you. Which brings us to the absolute most important takeaway of all. Knowing that your brain is highly plastic right now, knowing that every single word you speak is a biological instruction, and knowing that every moment of self-compassion and laughter physically wires your nervous system for calm, how will you code your biology today? You hold the absolute power to program your own upgrade. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really encourage you to take that incredible agency and start writing your best code yet.